Hey guys, good afternoon. This is Mike Costa from Coldwell Banker Realty with another episode of Real Estate 101. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel below if you like my videos, and this way you'll get every time I do a video, you'll be notified immediately. This interview today is happened by happenstance, basically. A couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Michelle LaGrassa regarding tax grievances, and an attorney liked it. And I didn't really know the attorney, so I Facebooked him and I looked him up, and he had a really, really interesting article about sellers' concessions. So I'm going to introduce Anthony Nozzolillo, and he's going to be discussing the pros and cons of a seller's concession for the buyer. So without further ado, here's Anthony.
Greetings, my name is Anthony Nozzolillo. I'm a real estate attorney. I serve as chief legal counsel to On Point Land Services Corporation, a real estate title insurance company located in Merrick, New York. Today, I'm going to discuss with you the seller's concession. What does it mean and how its dynamics factor into a closing transaction. Long story short, the seller's concession is a way of a borrower taking their closing costs, where a lending component is concerned, and rolling it into the mortgage. It's an imaginary number that gets added to the purchase price in order to increase the value of the property that's being pledged as collateral for the money that the bank is lending to the borrower. If the collateral is worth more, that means the bank is willing to lend more. The caveat is the house has to appraise for this increased amount in order for the bank to agree to lend more money to the buyer. By rolling in the closing costs into the loan amount, it avoids the buyer having to come out of pocket the lump sum or the cash to close, so to speak. And from a time value standard of money and a amortization standpoint, it would behoove most people, rather than come out of pocket, say $10 in order to see the closing to fruition, to take the $10, roll it into the closing costs, amortize it over 30 years, so the monthly payment does go up, but incrementally, I should say an incremental hurt to the pocket, as opposed to coming out of pocket $10 on one lump sum. It's amortized over 30 years. So the payment does go up, but only so slightly, and you will actually recapture the money probably within 5 to 6 years into the loan. So as opposed to coming out of pocket the lump sum, you roll it into the mortgage amount, and that additional money is amortized over the life of the loan and is incorporated into the monthly payment. The one caveat, as I said before, the home now, since you're increasing the purchase price to increase the collateral that's being pledged for the money the bank is lending to the buyer, has to appraise for this increased amount. Because by rolling in the closing costs into the mortgage, you also have to take that same number and augment or increase the purchase price by that amount. So how it would work conceptually, using small figures, would be, let's say you're purchasing a house for $10. Contract signing, you put down $1, representing 10%. Typically, 80% is the amount that's allowed in the contract as far as the mortgage contingency. So you'd be borrowing $8, whereby the residual $1 balance will be brought to closing. So you sign the contract, you put down $1, but now you meet with your loan officer and the term seller's concession comes in. Keep in mind that the $8 you're borrowing from the bank is not what you are essentially getting from the bank. The analysis would be in terms of gross and net, sort of like a paycheck. So the $8 you're getting is really not $8, because the bank takes their fees out. The bank sparks your escrow account. If you're escrowing for taxes and insurance, they actually deposit typically 3 to 4 months of taxes and insurance into that escrow account. Reason for that is when your taxes come due, your mortgage payment doesn't go up in that month. There's already been a cushion established, so it's a streamlined payment for the life of the loan. So back to the issue at hand, the loan amount, or the $8 in our situation, is reduced by the bank fees, by the escrow amount. In addition to that, the attorney takes their fee out of that and also pays the title fees out of that. So the $8 really becomes, let's say, $6. So instead of bringing the $1 residual balance to closing, which is what was thought, you don't have $1. You actually have to bring in $3, because the $8 you thought you had available from the bank is really reduced to $6. So instead of coming out of pocket $3, you roll the $2 into the mortgage amount. You increase the mortgage amount that you're borrowing by the $2, but by doing so, you don't have to bring the $3 out of pocket to closing to see the transaction to conclusion. The caveat of that is the home now has to appraise for that extra $2 amount, because again, you're pledging the house as collateral for the money the bank's lending to you. If you're looking to borrow more money, the collateral has to appraise for more money. So the $2 closing cost that you're rolling into the mortgage, you also have to add to the purchase price. So the $10 purchase price really becomes $12, but only on paper. You're still paying $10 for the home. The $2 is rolled in as a hypothetical fabricated number. And the way it's represented on the contract of sale would be that the seller is contributing $2 towards the purchaser's closing costs. So on paper, the $10 purchase price becomes $12. The borrower is now in a position suitable to borrow more money and come out of pocket less money, because again, they're rolling in that $2 into the loan amount. One condition would be, obviously, from a seller's standpoint, they would only concede to allowing that, but they want to make sure that if the house doesn't appraise now for 12, which is what would need happen if, in fact, the purchaser's intended goal of having a seller's concession rolled into the mortgage was going to be achieved, there would be in the contract as well stating that in the event the house does not appraise for $12, but only appraises for the 10, that the purchase price would revert back to the original price, and it would be as if the seller's concession never existed. Sometimes you get caught in the middle, where as opposed to appraising for 12, the house appraises for 11. So to correlate that, you have to reduce the seller's concession by the $1 in order to streamline the numbers. And again, there is always a provision, or should be, obviously, if you're the seller, that you're willing to concede, hence the term, the name is indicative as to what it is, the seller's concession, to allowing the borrower to borrow more money, and as a result, allowing the purchase price to be augmented. But it's understood that that is an imaginary number. So when it comes time to closing, the purchase price still is 10. The seller's not getting an extra $2. So from a monetary analysis standpoint, you would use $12 as the purchase price, but there would automatically be a credit to the purchaser for the $2, bringing the purchase price back down to $10. It's a lot of information to digest, but essentially the long short of it is whatever the closing costs are, you increase the mortgage amount by that amount to reduce the amount of out-of-pocket money that the buyer has to bring to the table in order to close. On the flip side, in order to achieve that goal, the home that's being pledged as collateral for the money the bank is lending has to also appraise for the increased $2 amount or whatever the closing costs are. And as a result, it's understood that the lender's appraisal has to justify and support that augmented purchase price value, augmented meaning it's increased by whatever the closing costs are. In the event it doesn't appraise for that amount, there should be an understanding and a direct implication in the contract indicating that in the event the home does not appraise for the increased amount, that it reverts back to the initial price, and it's as if the seller's concession never existed. Just to digress, it is to be understood that the purchaser will pay the transfer tax on the seller's concession amount. Typically in a 1-to-4 residential transaction, per the contract of sale, the seller is responsible for paying the New York State or New York City transfer tax, depending on where the property is located. If there is a seller's concession involved, the purchaser will pay the transfer tax on that amount. In the example I gave, it would be $2, because again, we increased the mortgage amount and in turn the purchase price by that $2. So the purchaser would pay the transfer tax on the $2. So that's the, again, generic by necessity overview and conceptual overview as to how the seller's concession functions, how it affects the seller, how it affects the buyer, numerically how the numbers come into play. If you wish to have a further elaboration and really read about it in depth, you can check out the articles that I write. This happens to be one of them, entitled The Seller's Concession, you can go to my website, www.nozzolillo.com. That's N as in Nancy O, ZZOLILLO, and link on to my Medium, which is basically an account where people can share their writings. And I have a lot of articles on there. This happens to be one of them. And again, it will be more detailed in nature and a lot, I think, easier to understand, because it's not that easy to describe verbally. But if you see it in paper, you'll pretty much get it. And my website for OnPoint is www.onpointland.com. That's the title company that I'm chief counsel to in Merrick, New York. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me as well. My number is 516-600-9750. And my email is anthony@onpointland.com. That's all one word, ONPOINTLAND.com. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey, Anthony, thank you very much for that concise and great explanation about the seller's concession. It's not an easy subject, but you did it very well. Thank you. Just keep in mind, if you're looking to use a seller's concession, in this kind of market where there's multiple offers and stuff like that, it's almost impossible to get your offer accepted with the seller's concession. So there is a time for it, but in this seller's market, a seller's concession is not the way to go 9 times out of 10. So once again, thank you, Anthony. And this is Mike Costa from Coldwell Banker. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel below. And if you're looking to buy or sell a house in the near future, give me a buzz. 516-647-2919. Thank you and have a great day.